Hey, everybody. Welcome to Badge Chat K-12, the 3-year anniversary show. Kate totally showing up right as we went live. That is so awesome timing. Love that, just like we love Kate. We're also joined by Nate Otto, and hopefully Don Prezan is going to be joining us to keep our streak of international Badge Chats going. Welcome to the show, and just kind of a little bit of background before we launch into conversation is, this is now 3 years that we've been doing on pretty much every Monday, Badge Cat K-12. And we're really excited to be, have this chance to say, hey, we're still going. And what have we learned? Where are we now? And where do we think and hope that we're going? And Kate said she can't hear, so I'm guessing she just is restarting her computer and will be right back. But Nate, I mean, you've been along for this whole ride. You were in some of the very earliest Badge Chats, probably even the first one. And I know I knew you by your avatar for a real long time before I'd ever had met you in person. What can you just tell us as far as looking back at where we were versus where we are now from the lens of the kind of Badge Alliance and those community calls?
Sure, yeah. So the Badge Chat K-12 has meant a lot to me personally, but also I think to the Badges community over the last 3 years. It's an example of a community that can spin up and use resources that are available to all, use things that are free and cheap, and of course are the commitment of time from great people like Noah to build a community where we can actually have rapidly growing professional understanding of what it means to use this technology in a real setting, in real classrooms, in real professional development environments. And so I've been, it's really made me believe in the Badges movement a lot, to see the people who come to Badge Chat every week, every other week, and who join in the conversation, sharing their knowledge with one another, totally on a volunteer basis. It provides one of those channels that you can learn what it is to use this potentially very transformative technology, and of course meet some super awesome people as you go.
Totally. And just a quick reminder for anybody who's just joined us and watching live, if you have questions you want to ask myself or Nate, comments, please do tweet those at us, hashtag BadgeChatK12. We'll be definitely checking those on the Twitter stream as we're having our conversation. And Nate, something that you mentioned there that I think for me is I think kind of a highlight of the last 2 years is you discussed understanding. And I think back to 3 years ago and where conversations were, I'm working on digital badges, and people were saying, huh? What's that? And even when you'd have conversations, not just 3 years ago, but 2 years ago, and maybe even a year and a half ago, a lot of the understanding was, a really narrow understanding, of, kind of the prize version of digital badge credentials, right? That this is just a sticker or a gold star. And, I feel like there's a real sense of understanding in the air to view them not just as, that sticker, but also as an actual full-fledged credential. Any thoughts about that? And Kate, if your audio is working, feel free to jump in as well.
Hi, I hope it's working. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right.
Yeah. Well, here, I'll take first stab at that and then Kate can add on. So yeah, there has been a massive growth in just what people know and the level of conversation around this concept. So I came to digital badges in 2012 when the Open Badges effort was still under the wing of the Mozilla Foundation, and we were having weekly community calls. Occasionally, a badges session would get accepted at a conference, and one of the community members would go and speak to a room where the topic was always sort of a badges 101 and was always about, what are badges, what is this potential? It's sort of in the distant future as the only thing that we could possibly discuss around badges. And around 2014, that started changing. The Badge Alliance had launched and was having targeted working groups with its close-knit community. The new conversation areas like Badge Chat were spinning up, and you could totally see the effects of this change as people started to really understand the potential of badges and understand what was actually deployed into the market in terms of technology you could just go sign up for and use. And we started seeing conference presentations that were about, best practices for using them, different aspects. And, we've had now 3 years of topical calls at Badge Alliance, or at Badge Chat K-12, and the Badge Alliance as well, but topical calls about different aspects of the badging journey, occasionally returning to our sort of common themes, but also exploring just a massive variety of the ways that this technology can be used in our lives, as educators, as learners, and as peers just existing in the world. Kate, how do you think things have changed sort of since the early days of Badge Chat 3 years ago?
Thank you for summarizing the question, first of all. And as you were talking, I just found myself going, yes, absolutely. Like I have spent a lot of time presenting on this topic in a variety of different locations and meetings and with different audiences, because I've really wanted to see, what components of this conversation resonate with which group. And I can safely say with agreement to what you just said, Nate, that the hunger in the community right now is more about, okay, thanks, I know what they are. How do I do it? And how do I do it right? And how do I sustain it? Those are the questions that people are asking me. Granted, there's probably a huge contingency that haven't even, opened up to this. But as far as people that are in the midst of this conversation and looking to bring it, we've seen that movement, and I think there's so much to be said about the dedication of this small group of people to just hit the topics time and time again and get people to understand that there are so many different entry points, and there's no wrong way to do it. It's just a matter of really getting down to professional choice and telling your story as an expert, as your story forms. And those badges really help you do that. So it's exciting when, the conversation gets to that higher level and less about the logistics, and where you can actually get to talk about the bigger picture and meaning of it. So it's been fun.
Now thanks. One other change since the beginning. Now Twitter has 240 characters, and we can talk about it twice as much in every single message.
Uh-huh.
Well, welcome to the conversation, Don Prezan. Thank you for being with us, Don. And one thing that really kind of resonates with me, Nate and Kate, on what you were just talking about is, this idea of, and maybe not even just for badges and credentials, but really for any sort of change that folks want to lead in education that's really kind of conceptually abstract. And that's that, one of the lessons learned is once you move out of kind of white paper land into having tangible, real world examples to share with people, that's when you start going fast to go fast. Does that kind of resonate with y'all?
Mm-hmm.
Don, so let's get you into the conversation. Something I'd love to ask you about, is just, we've been, sometimes a bigger chat, a lot of times got kind of a small but mighty chat, but we've been a consistent chat, and for years now. And as somebody who's, bringing it, from a whole other, kind of country, not kind of country, a whole other country, being Canada, what do you see in our community that has helped it kind of grow and sustain and continue to thrive?
Well, I think you have to take some credit there, Noah. I think your persistence and your enthusiasm is infectious, and you're pretty inventive in terms of coming up with topics and questions to explore the topics. Speaking on a purely personal level, I found Badge Chat to be really good transitional bridge for me. I was talking about the issues up here in Canada, but I wasn't packaging it in very tight ways. And actually, just going back to Nate's talking about 280 characters, the 140 characters that I had to come up with for those badge chats were really useful for me to just sort of encapsulate what I'm thinking about in a pithy way and get it out in a short amount of time, just to sort of integrate what I was thinking and just get it out there. And it's been really useful for me, actually, in terms of crystallizing my thinking and responding to people just about the issues. One of the things that I think it's a bit of a misnomer, badge chat K-12, because it does go beyond K-12, and that's great. You know, basically K-12 is probably one of the smaller parts of what I work on up here, although I was just in a very interesting conversation with somebody about that. So when you start bringing in, you know, teacher PD and things like that, obviously it starts branching out, but it's even branched out further. So I think what it's done is evolved over the years, along with the badging, you know, ecosphere, and it's been just great to come along with it.
And I wanted to just say something too. You made me think of this, Don, that I have been grateful over the years that there's this community that's available for me to point people when I meet with them at conferences, or when I discuss something with them on Twitter, or I get those random direct messages or tags on tweets like, what do I do next? How do I do this? And it's like, it's just so wonderful to know that I can point them to the hashtag and the conversation that's going around about this, and that I trust that, you know, it's vibrant and it's relevant and it's staying up to date with the most recent developments in our community. And so that's huge kudos to you and your diligence in making this happen from week to week, because it takes someone like you with that hunger to make it happen. So thank you.
When piggybacking on Kate's comment there, we are a very open community. There's definitely no, you know, providence on running these things. And so if you are somebody who has a really compelling topic and you're worried that it's only compelling to you, get over yourself, message us, and you know, you can run the chat yourself. We'd love to have it. Definitely not against sharing by any means. And, you know, I really like what you and Kate said, Don, about, you know, being able to lean on other people, because, you know, I learn every week, even from somebody saying, hey, what are badges? And then, like you said, seeing how other colleagues articulate things, or then seeing how they respond. And, you know, I just get light bulbs every week, seeing how, you know, people coming from any level of background knowledge then turn around and articulate their stuff has been really, you know, informative to me. And I've also been impressed how people kind of stick around. You know, people come week after week and come in for a while. Nate, why don't you go ahead and jump in next?
Yeah, so, you know, I just wanted to bring one thing back into focus about what you just said, which is when other people can run a chat. You know, we invite people into this series to come in and offer a topic, bring their own expertise or perspective into this chat. And that can be a really meaningful way of engaging in this community. And actually, that's sort of how I got my start in Open Badges, was before Badge Chat began, was in 2013, when Mozilla was running weekly community calls. They started to have the idea that they could offer special topic calls on things people care about. There were several people in the community that wanted to talk about how badges might work within libraries, and no one stepped forward immediately to from the existing core community to offer that topic, even though there were a few who promised to join that call. And I thought, well, you know, I know a little bit about libraries, you know, just sort of as a fan of them. I could jump in and do this conversation for an hour. And just the invitation saying, hey, yes, we'll make a space for you to do this, was the very beginning of me actually becoming involved in a technology that now, you know, I work on 40 plus hours a week, and that I care about really deeply. I could see the potential, and someone gave me that little invite to say, hey, you could join this community as a contributor now, instead of just as, you know, sort of one of the public. And that was a really meaningful transition for me. One of the best things that I like about the Open Badges community is that it makes space for people to come in and join on a level playing field for others. That's new developers, new companies, and just new teachers.
Totally. And Nate, I'll scratch your back a little bit. You probably don't know this, but the first time I heard your voice was probably on one of those calls way back when you had Shelley Blake Plock from an estuary on, talking about TinKit and XAPI and blowing my mind. And that's what got me hooked. You know, I want to, and anybody who's watching this live, feel free to tweet us, #BadgeChatK12, although I'm hearing that we need to just get over ourselves and drop the K12 as we go into our 4th year of the chat. I'm happy to do it. But
I don't want, why do we have to?
I think that Don makes a great point. You know, we are super inclusive, and it wins us back 3 extra characters.
That's
well, that's not so important anymore.
But
every character counts.
As somebody who is doing, like you mentioned, a ton of presentations, you know, especially around, you know, adult badge and teacher PD badges, you know, I'm really curious to hear how you've seen, you know, where we were versus where we are today, and just kind of in the last 3 years, what kind of movement have you seen?
You're asking me, Noah?
I was going to do Kate, and then if you want to jump in, Don, go for it.
No, that's fine.
I think that for professional learning, I'm impressed by the different kinds of platform or different kinds of approaches that people are taking with this. So, for example, the Stanislas team, Greg Eilers and Luke Hibbard and Bert Lowe, have worked to create these very tool-centric badges, and the evidence that's required to earn these badges is relatively basic, but it still pushes the learning. It creates this feeling of, hey, I got 10 minutes, I can get this done, and I can tell people and show people that I've done it. And they have this amazing culture of celebration in their community, which I'm so impressed by. The previous team I worked on at Santa Clara County Office of Ed has, we've taken a slightly different approach to it, and we've created these longer courses that are micro-badged and micro-certified, and we are aligning them to university credit. And then you have, and I would kind of say those are the 2 extremes. And then we have, you know, so many different variations within that model. And I guess the exciting thing for me is that we're designing professional learning opportunities for our teachers that's varied and that's personal. And at the end of the day, we can only hope that that's then trickling down into their classroom and it's being replicated with their students. And ultimately, that's what teacher badges are all about for me, are designing these really impactful learning opportunities for teachers to then influence the way they offer learning opportunities to their kids. And I'm seeing it happen. So, Don, what do you got?
Well, for me, I really do think 2017 is a big inflection point. I think we're going to look back at 2017, and I'm trying to figure all the factors that have fed into it. I think part of it was, it's odd, but part of it was being taken on by IMS Global. I like to say that open badges were invented by hippies, and in 2017 they got a haircut and bought a suit. So, and you know, there's stuff you miss, you know, from the old days, but there's some new things that end up sort of coming on stream in terms of other people sitting up and taking notice, and then some big corporations such as IBM sort of stepping up and doing that. So all of a sudden, conversations are getting more serious. More people are kicking the tires, both within K-12 and then beyond K-12, and people aren't coming back with the typical pushback kinds of questions. You know, they actually are interested. So, I mean, in day after tomorrow, we're going to be running the first Ontario Open Badges Forum, and Nate was very kind to be with us in the BC Open Badges Forum. So, and that I think is going to take things again to another level, because they're using it as a way of rethinking recognition of learning, not just for students, but also for faculty, etc. So, and for me, that's always been what open badges are about, is about recognition. And I think what you're talking about, Kate, in terms of the faculty and working their way along, and the peer recognition that happens, and also just figuring out your own pathways, sometimes maybe even defining your own badges that relate to things that you want to be recognized for. Mm-hmm. Those things I think are going to be happening more and more, especially with the new specification. Actually, I have a speech from my colleague Serge for this Open Badges Forum, and he's talking about you know, informal recognition of informal learning, and open recognition of open badges. You know, so it's
and Don, as far as plugs go, any links or resources that we can, or hashtags that you can direct people to if they see this in time for tomorrow's Ontario Summit?
Oh, Day after tomorrow. I need to. I'll point them to the website right now. It's openbadge.ecampusontario.ca. Right now.
All right, we'll tweet that out on the hashtag as well for anybody who wasn't typing quickly enough. Speaking of summits, Don, something that's powerfully touched me personally. I'd love to just hear the take of it from y'all. Is that we started as a chat, and then one of the many evolutions from it was the 2016, 2017 badge summits here in Colorado, and then in San Antonio last year. The 2018 summit will be June 23rd in Chicago. And just kind of bringing together people who, I don't know, I don't know, would we have been able to bring those people together, cold calling them to this conference they've never heard of, independence of the community raised on badge chat? Does the kind of chat have implications in y'all's minds beyond just Mondays at 6:30 Eastern?
Yes,
I think there's a great. Go ahead, Nate.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there are some things that you can't just, like, no matter how many times you collaborate over Skype or Google Hangouts or Twitter, there's some things that you just can't get done until you actually meet in person and sort of hash something out. And at the same time, the in-person meetings can be a great time of celebration of what it is that we have done together so far. I was so sad to miss out on the first badge summit in Colorado, and so happy that I was able to make it to San Antonio this year for a full day of a sold-out crowd ready to celebrate and understand what it is that we can do to get involved to make 2017 that inflection point that Don talked about, and start accelerating the growth curve to make sure that badges can reach even more markets.
I love that summary, Nate. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we do have just about 8 minutes left. I want to value everybody's time. If you have any questions or comments that you want us to mention on the air, hashtag BadgeChatK12 for now. Next week we'll change it up. But Kate, I know that something you're really interested in is not just the credentialing side of things, but also the gamification side of things, and that they don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive. Do you want to kind of speak to that and just what you're seeing and that's exciting?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of having more conversations around gamification recently than before, and I think people are intrigued. There's always been a sense of intrigue with the word gamification, but what I'm starting to uncover with people now is that badges are just one game mechanic, and it's really important to note that badges are a part of an approach to learning that really comes down to building connections, building emotional relationships to the learning, creating a sense of collaboration and community and celebration all around things that aren't necessarily celebratory, like doing vocabulary, or collaborative, like taking courses as a professional. Those aren't always those types of experiences. And so I love when I can work with educators and help them understand that by simply laying over these game mechanics, and badges being one of them, you can really start to create new levels of meaning in the learning for the students and for the teachers. And it goes back to what I said before, that the importance of gamifying professional learning is so high in my mind, because when we create these really fun and engaging opportunities for teachers, they take those strategies and they apply them in their classroom. And again, if badges is where we're going to start, that's awesome. But there's so many other places to start with it. So it's nice to know that conversation is happening.
Awesome. Don or Nate, did you want to add in on that?
Yeah, just briefly. I mean, gamification is a really deep topic, just like digital badges, and the level of expertise that's developing and just the people's understanding that this is a deep pool. This isn't just add badges and then you'll have motivation. That's not how gamification works. Gamification is part of a full, good design process that you have to put in place when you build out an education program. And you have to understand how all the parts work together. We had a course this summer for thousands of people who are interested in Hitchcock movies, offered on Canvas with Professor Rich Edwards from Ball State University, and they had unheard of levels of completion of their massive course. 64% of users or something completed the entire course instead of you getting like 4 out of 10 even looked at the first assignment. And they attributed the stickiness of that course to just an overall good design, everything from the visual assets of the badges to the ways that they were included in the course and included in Twitter conversations around the course. They built a great community using gamification and badges. And the results were sort of amazing for the MOOC community, but it took their real intense focus and some very good designers on their team in order to make it happen. So we're getting that expertise, that level of experience, and just understanding that. I started this call off talking about where people really can see that this is a really deep pool and you can go into it as far as you want. And you need a network to come together to understand, what is it that I know, how can I contribute, and who do I need to connect with in order to understand how I can build a really successful implementation.
That's deep right there. I love that your way you wrap that up and tied a boat around it, Nate. That's profound. I'm really curious as we kind of wrap up in our final minutes here. We've touched a lot about, from whence we've come. We've talked about, where we kind of are versus where we were. What do you see, on the horizon in 2018 and beyond? And, maybe even not just digital badge, not just badge chat, but just digital badge credentials in general. And Kate, maybe we'll start with you since you're on the left of my screen. And we can go left to right.
I would hope, here's kind of my moonshot for our community, or our call to action. I think that a huge missing link right now is clarity around what to do with the badges once you have them. And the backpack solution is not clear. And it's difficult as a facilitator and as somebody who issues badges to help people understand the bigger picture. When they ask me, well, what do I do with it once I have it? And I give them the few options I can think of, but I really do hope that our community dives into the backpack issue and comes up with a solution that's meaningful and portable and does everything we need it to be. So I don't know if that's coming, but I believe you get what you put out, and so I'm putting that out. I'm putting that out there to our community, hoping it comes.
Awesome. Don?
I think that I'm right on the same page with Kate there. I think badges need a social life. I don't think they should be locked up in a closet after you get them. And I think the value, there's been way too much focus on the issuing of badges. There should be a lot more focus on how you valorize these badges, how you leverage these badges into new pathways, ways of finding each other, building community around each other. What I talk about a lot, and what we're trying to do up here in Ontario and other places where we're working, is building ecosystems around badges, and things like the endorsement feature that's coming in with the specification, the version 2 of the Open Badges specification, are going to make that easier, as well as things like aligning to frameworks. So these badges have meaning. I can find people based on those badges, and they tell a story.
Great. I agree with both what Kate and Don said, almost entirely. We need to turn our focus from, how do we issue badges, to how do we understand badges as they circulate in our lives. And we also need really good software in order to make the experiences of using badges valuable, and also to give them new life. I love what you said, Donna. Give badges a social life. Help understand your connections with other humans around you in virtual spaces and in real, in your own town. Help understand those using these technologies and build the apps that are needed to accomplish those purposes. I'm on the technical side. I see a lot of opportunities for new developers to jump in here, and let's just make sure we keep the community open to new people participating so it can grow to cover the broad use cases that we want to target, and let's make sure to keep the standards and technologies that we're working with open so that anyone can implement them without cost, and so they can feel confident in that when they invest in badges, they're going to build something really cool for the world that everyone can immediately get their hands on, and that they will be able to sort of invest in that for the long term, have a good chance of finding a community that really likes using their tools.
Awesome, man. I know you all couldn't have timed it even better. It is top of the hour. I want to respect all of your free time. I want to respect our audience's time. Thank you all so much for those of you who were watching us live. Thanks to those who were tweeting along with us. We had at least one first-time person, Tanya. Bienvenida, welcome. We love having you here. To anybody who is lurking, we value that as your own active form of engagement. And super mega muy excited that we've been doing this for 3 years, and there seems to still be your desire, demand, and need for it. So we're going to keep it going. And I have several takeaways, but one of them is that we're going to rebrand and change the name and cut off the last 3 figures there. Thank you all so much for joining us, Kate, Don, and Nate, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good to see you.